Tamsyn shifted back into human form near her parents' home. They lived fairly close to the pack circle, and it was where she was staying for the time being, her life in limbo. She should have been living with Nate by now. Eyes stinging at the reminder of his rejection, she went to retrieve some clothes she'd hidden for just such contingencies. Nudity was no big deal in the pack, but she was already going to be a crybaby. At least she could be a clothed crybaby. Dressed, she walked to the front door. Her mother opened it before she could knock. With her dark hair and pale brown eyes, Sadie Maher was an older, smaller version of Tamsyn. It was Tamsyn's father who had given his daughter her height. Her mother took one look at her face and opened her arms. "Come here, my darling." Sobbing, Tamsyn went into her mother's embrace. "I don't know what to do, Mom," she said what felt like hours later. She was lying on the sofa, her head in her mother's lap and her legs curled up on the cushions. "This need I have for him, it's clawing me to pieces, but he doesn't seem to feel the same." That knowledge crushed her, made her feel as if she were bleeding inside. "Oh, yes, he does." Sadie stroked Tamsyn's hair off her face with gentle hands. "He's simply had longer to get used to it." Longer? How? The bond awakened at the same instant in both of us. He'd come to the door on her 15th birthday, and she'd felt something in her snap taut, a connection so strong it vibrated with how utterly right it was. "Yes, but you were 15. Your sexuality was young, immature." She remembered the wave of heavy warmth that had uncurled in her stomach whenever she'd been around Nathan, the soft ache in low places. "I wanted him even then. But as a girl wants, not as a woman." Sadie pressed a kiss to her brow. "He, on the other hand, had to have had a brutal time of it. You were a baby, and he'd never have allowed himself to touch you. But he was a man, and his beast knew you were his mate." Tamsyn began to see what her mother was saying. "He had to learn to chain the mating urges of the leopard. Wait until I was ready." For the first time, she understood the pain it must have caused him. And he couldn't be with any other woman. Mates don't cheat. Sadie sighed. "That's a very good thing, but it's also a hard thing to bear when things don't work out perfectly. But you understand about Nate now, don't you? He's as hungry for you as you are for him. It's just that he's had years to build up his will against the need. He's going to be a sentinel, Mom," she said, proud but afraid. "You know the kind of men who become sentinels. His will was already as strong as steel before he found out about the bond. Now I'm pretty certain it's unbreakable." She rubbed a hand over her heart, where the bond was a savagely twisted knot. Though it was meant to be an instinctive link, Nate had somehow learned to block it. Her animal heart kept reaching out to him, only to slam up against a solid wall of resistance. "Oh, my baby." Sadie squeezed her shoulder and Tamsyn sat up, wiping away the final evidence of her tears. "Now listen," her mother said, pure love in her expression. "The man's will might be unbreakable for some, but not for you. You're his mate. You have a direct line to his soul. But he won't listen. He's made up his mind that we're going to wait and wait and wait and—" She shook her head, shoulders hunching in defeat. "I know he's thinking in terms of years, not months." A wait that long would drive her insane. She wasn't being overly dramatic. The lack of tactile contact between her and Nate, the denial of what their beasts craved, it physically hurt. "And it's not like I'm some sexy little thing that can seduce him." It was out before she could feel embarrassed. "You're beautiful." Sadie's voice was full of maternal pride. "You have courage and strength and such spirit.